I used to be the person who said things like, "It's just math. Bills in, bills out. Spend less than you make. Don't get emotional about money." I kept a color-coded spreadsheet, paid the credit cards every Friday, and treated our life like a neat little system I could keep stable with enough discipline. That's why the bankruptcy still feels like a glitch in the universe. It happened on a Tuesday in late February, the kind of gray morning where the coffee tastes burnt no matter what you do. I was sitting at the kitchen island with my laptop open, looking at our business account and my personal checking account like they were two strangers refusing to acknowledge each other. My wife, Claire, was upstairs getting ready for work. I could hear the hairdryer. Everything sounded normal. My chest didn't. I clicked refresh again. The numbers didn't change. Of course they didn't. We owned a small home services company. Nothing sexy, just plumbing and HVAC dispatch and scheduling. I wasn't trying to be a titan. I wanted steady. I wanted predictable. I wanted to retire without needing my kids to spot me. But predictability doesn't survive a year of rising supply costs. A technician who walked off with a van, and 3 clients who decided net 60 meant maybe never. A couple bad months turned into a couple desperate ones. I started floating payroll on credit cards like it was temporary. Then the credit limits tightened. Then the interest rate jumped. Then the bank that used to greet me by name stopped returning my calls. When the lawyer finally said, gently, "You're insolvent," I nodded like I was hearing about the weather. I was calm. I was rational. I was in control. That was the last time I could honestly say that. The bankruptcy attorney's office smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper. He was a middle-aged guy with a wedding ring and a face that practiced neutrality for a living. He slid forms across the desk and explained what would happen like it was a routine dental cleaning. Chapter 7, maybe 13, depending on what we qualified for. We'd disclose everything. The trustee would review our finances. Certain assets were exempt, certain ones weren't. There would be a meeting of creditors where nobody usually showed up except the trustee and a board court reporter. "People think bankruptcy means you're hiding," he said. "But it's the opposite. It's radical honesty." I almost laughed at that. Honesty was my thing. I didn't gamble. I didn't mess around. I didn't do creative accounting. I was the boring adult at the party. Claire joined us halfway through. She wore a navy blouse and carried herself like we were at a parent-teacher conference. She squeezed my shoulder when the attorney said, "Debt discharge," like we'd made it through something. In the parking lot, she exhaled hard and said, Okay, we can breathe." I looked at her and said, "We're doing the right thing." She nodded too fast. "Yes, totally. Clean slate." We drove home in silence. I kept thinking about the phrase radical honesty. My stomach tightened like it didn't believe me. That night, after the kids went to bed, Claire poured 2 glasses of wine and said, "No more secrets. We're a team." I remember thinking, good. Finally. I didn't realize she'd just handed me the knife and asked me to hold it. The paperwork was brutal in the dumbest way. Not emotionally brutal, logistically brutal. Months of bank statements, every credit card, every loan, every asset, every gift over a certain amount. I sat at my desk at midnight with my laptop fan whining and the glow of the screen making my hands look pale. Claire kept offering to help, but she'd hover for 2 minutes, then get a work email and disappear. On the 3rd night, I found a credit card I didn't recognize. It was buried in a statement PDF I almost skipped. Same bank as her other card, but a different account number. The balance made my eyes go dry. $28,914. 17. I opened the transaction list. Luxury hotel in Chicago. Designer boutique. Multiple cash advances. A series of payments to something called Silver Oak Consulting. I stared at it long enough that the words stopped looking real. When I confronted Claire, I tried to do it the way I do anything. Calm voice, facts first. "Why do you have another credit card?" She was folding laundry. She didn't stop folding. "I don't. I have the statement." She finally paused, a towel frozen in her hands. That's old. Old doesn't mean non-existent. It's almost 30 grand. Her throat bobbed. I opened it when things got tight. I didn't want to stress you out. I waited for the explanation to arrive like a package that was late but promised. And the cash advances? And Chicago? Claire's eyes got shiny, but her tone sharpened. I had to go to a conference. What conference? I asked. She set the towel down too neatly. Why are you interrogating me? We're already bankrupt. What does it matter? That was the first crack in my idea of us. And it mattered because the bankruptcy meant disclosures. Lies didn't just hurt feelings now. Lies were legal problems. Claire went upstairs and shut the bedroom door like she was punishing me for noticing. I sat on the couch and realized my just math life had missing numbers. The trustee meeting was on Zoom. I wore a button-down shirt with sweatpants because dignity has limits. Claire sat beside me, hands clasped, face composed in that way people look at funerals. Sad but determined to be seen handling it. The trustee was a woman with quick eyes and a voice that moved like a stapler. She confirmed our names, our address, and asked the standard questions. Have you listed all your assets? Yes, I said. Have you transferred any property in the last 2 years? No, Claire said at the exact same time. I shot her a look. She didn't meet it. Then the trustee asked, do either of you have any interest in any trusts, inheritances, pending lawsuits, or expected windfalls? No, I said, because I believed it. Claire hesitated. It was a tiny hesitation, barely a stutter. No, she echoed. The trustee's eyes flicked to her. Ma'am, that was not a confident no. Claire forced a laugh. Just nerves. The meeting ended. We were told to stand by for follow-up requests. When the screen went black, I turned to Claire. What was that? She waved a hand like she could erase it. Nothing. My pulse thudded. Claire. Her jaw tightened. I'm trying to keep us together. Can you not do this right now? I should have let it go. Responsible people avoid scenes. Instead, I opened the laptop again and started searching our records like a dog that suddenly smells smoke. I found another thing. A monthly deposit into our joint account for $1,200 labeled So Consulting. Same name as the credit card charges. It had been happening for almost a year. Money was coming in, and I had never asked why. The first time I said, Silver Oak Consulting out loud. Claire flinched like I'd said someone's name we weren't supposed to speak. We were in the kitchen. The kids were at school. The house was too quiet like it knew. I saw the deposits, I said. What is it? Claire leaned on the counter and rubbed her forehead. It's just side work. What side work pays you through our joint account without you telling me? She exhaled. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, I said, and my calm cracked into something sharper. You hid debt and you hid income. In a bankruptcy. Her eyes snapped up. I was trying to fix it before you noticed. Fix what? She swallowed. I was consulting for a guy from my old job. Process stuff. Compliance stuff. It was supposed to be temporary. And the cash advances? Claire's voice dropped. I used it to pay his startup costs. He promised he'd reimburse. He did those deposits. I stared. So you took cash advances at 24% interest to fund someone else? And he paid you back in installments? Claire's cheeks flushed. Don't make it sound stupid. I didn't have to. It sounded stupid on its own. Who is he? I asked. Claire's mouth twitched. Evan. And there it was, a name and a new shape to the problem. I pulled up the bank statements again because I couldn't stop. The deposits weren't just $1,200. Sometimes there were extra ones. $3,000 here, $5,000 there. Not steady, not payroll, more like hush money. My hands went cold. Claire, I said slowly, what did you do for him? She looked at me like I'd betrayed her by wanting the truth. I tried to save us, she said. That sentence should have been comforting. It wasn't. A week later, the trustee's office emailed asking for clarification on recurring deposits and additional documentation regarding So Consulting. The subject line was polite. The tone underneath it was not. Claire insisted she'd handle it. She sent a few invoices that looked off. Generic. Like they were written by someone who'd never actually done the work. I told myself I was being paranoid, but my body disagreed. Couldn't eat. I kept waking up at 3 a.m. with my jaw clenched like I'd been chewing rocks. Then my attorney called and said, "Did you know your bankruptcy file triggered an automatic review because of inconsistent disclosures?" Inconsistent how? I asked too quickly. He hesitated. "There's a flag for undisclosed income and possible preferential transfers. The trustee is asking for more. You need to be very careful." After the call, I sat in my car in the driveway and watched the neighbor's sprinkler tick back and forth like it had all the time in the world. When I walked inside, Claire was at the table with her laptop, typing fast. She didn't look up. "What's going on?" I asked. She snapped, "I'm fixing it." "What is it, Claire? What did you do?" She stared at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I didn't steal anything." I hadn't even said the word, but it landed between us anyway. That night, she admitted Evan wasn't just a guy from her old job. He'd been her supervisor at a healthcare billing company years ago, back when we were newly married and broke in the normal way. "He said he needed help," she whispered. "He said he was getting audited and he didn't have anyone he could trust." "And you trusted him?" I asked. Claire looked down. "He always made me feel capable." It hit me then that money wasn't the only thing Evan had given her. It was attention, status, a secret. I felt something hot and ugly in my throat. "Did you sleep with him?" I asked. Claire's eyes flicked up, furious. "This is about money. Don't make it about that." But it was about both, and we both knew it. The next twist came from someone I'd never met. A letter arrived in a plain envelope addressed to me, not Claire. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and 3 words. "Ask about Evan." I held it like it might stain my fingers. That night, after Claire fell asleep, I went out to the garage and called. A woman answered. Her voice was low, controlled. "You're Michael?" she asked. "Yes. I'm not supposed to be contacting you," she said. "But I can't watch another family get dragged under." "Who are you?" I asked. "Auditor," she said, then corrected herself. "Former auditor. My contract got terminated when I wouldn't sign off." My heart beat in my ears. "Sign off on what?" She exhaled. "Evan's been running a billing fraud scheme. Inflated claims, ghost patients, fake vendors. He launders money through consultants. Your wife is listed as one." The garage felt suddenly too small. "I didn't know," I said automatically. "I'm sure you didn't," she replied, like she'd said that sentence to a lot of people. "But your bankruptcy made you visible. Trustees don't like unexplained deposits. Evan's careful, but he didn't expect court supervision." "What does this mean?" I asked. "It means you're in the blast radius," she said, "and Evan will not hesitate to let you take the hit." I thought about Claire's invoices, the vague language, the cash advances, the deposits. I thought about how calm I'd been, how confident I was that honesty was my default state. Then I realized something awful. I'd been calm because I hadn't been paying attention. Money didn't just drive our plot. It drove my blindness. When I confronted Claire with what the auditor said, she didn't deny it immediately. That pause was everything. Her shoulders slumped. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I didn't know it was fraud," she said, voice thin. "He said it was just messy accounting." "Messy accounting doesn't involve ghost patients," I snapped. She started crying, the kind of crying that's half shame, half rage. "You were drowning. The business was collapsing. You were trying to be Superman and I was watching our whole life tilt. Evan said he could help." "By making you a money funnel?" I said. Claire wiped her face hard. "He told me it was consulting. He said if I helped him, he'd make sure we didn't lose the house." I laughed once, short and ugly. "We lost the house anyway." She flinched. "Not yet." And then she told me the next part, like she'd been holding it behind her teeth. Evan had promised a lump sum once his audit issue was resolved. Enough to pay off our debts. Enough to avoid bankruptcy. enough to put us back in control. But when I filed, Evan got angry. He said I ruined everything, Claire whispered. He said the bankruptcy trustee would poke around and he'd be exposed. He told me to stop communicating in writing. I felt like I was watching our marriage from outside my body. Two adults in a kitchen speaking in legal terms instead of feelings. I need you to understand, I said slowly, that this isn't just debt. This is criminal. Claire's eyes met mine. So what do we do? The responsible answer would have been, tell the attorney, cooperate, protect the kids. Instead, the first thing I thought was, if Evan has money, maybe he can fix this. That's when I realized the financial truth that altered my understanding of myself. I wasn't just a victim. I was tempted. A few days later, Evan called Claire. She put him on speaker without asking me, like she needed a witness. His voice was smooth, almost amused. Mike, heard you guys took the nuclear option. I swallowed. You used my wife's name to launder money. He chuckled. You're being dramatic. Claire snapped. You said you'd take care of us. I would have, Evan said, tone shifting to annoyed. But you made it complicated. I leaned forward. We're exposed now. The trustee is asking questions. There's an audit trail. Evan sighed like we were customer service. Okay, here's what's going to happen. I'll send you a payoff. Enough to cover your attorney and settle the trustee's concerns. You amend the filing, disclose the consulting income, and everybody moves on. Claire's eyes widened. You can do that? Claire, he said, softer, and something in my stomach twisted. I told you I'd handle it. I should have said no. I should have told him to go to hell and then called my lawyer. Instead, I asked, how much? There was a pause like he enjoyed it. 75,000, he said. Wire. Clean. My mouth went dry. 75,000 was a miracle number. It was the difference between disgrace and survival. It was the kind of money you imagine when you're lying awake at 3 a.m. Bargaining with the universe. Why would you do that? I asked, trying to sound rational. Because I don't like loose ends, Evan said. Claire whispered, please. And I said, send it. I hated myself as the words left my mouth, but I also felt relief like a drug. That night, Claire and I held each other in bed like people who'd survived a storm. I told myself we'd reached the false resolution. Money would fix it. We'd patch the hole. We'd move on. I fell asleep believing the crisis was over. It wasn't even close. The wire hit our account 2 days later. I opened the banking app and just stared. $75,000. 00 sitting there like a calm, indifferent fact. Claire exhaled a laugh sob. Oh my God. Oh my God. For a moment, we were almost happy. We met with our attorney and disclosed the consulting income, framing it as legitimate work Claire had done. We amended schedules. We provided invoices. We paid off a chunk of immediate obligations. The trustee's tone softened, just slightly, like a teacher who sees a student finally turning in assignments. I walked around for the next week with my shoulders lower, my breath easier. I went to the grocery store without calculating every item. I filled the gas tank all the way. It was intoxicating. Then, on a Friday afternoon, I got a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. The voice was official, clipped. Mr. Harper, this is Special Agent Morales. I'm calling regarding an investigation. Please return my call. I listened to it twice, hoping I'd misheard. Claire was in the shower. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the phone like it might bite me. Special agent. Investigation. My rational brain tried to build explanations. Scam call. Wrong number. Anything. But my body knew. My body had been knowing for weeks. The money didn't save us. The money marked us. Agent Morales met me at a federal building downtown. The lobby was sterile and cold, the kind of place where you don't joke. I brought my attorney. Claire stayed home with the kids, which was her way of avoiding the room where consequences lived. Morales was younger than I expected. Clean suit, calm eyes. He didn't smile. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were bank records I recognized too well. Silver Oak Consulting, he said. Do you know what that is? I tried to keep my voice level. My wife did consulting work. Morales watched me like he'd heard that exact line 100 times. For Evan Ross? My attorney's hand twitched toward his pen. Morales continued. Mr. Ross is under investigation for healthcare billing fraud and money laundering. Your bankruptcy filing triggered a report because of inconsistent income disclosures. Then, suddenly, you received a $75,000 wire. My stomach dropped through the chair. Morales tapped the page. Do you know where that $75,000 came from? I heard myself say. He said it was payment. Morales's eyes stayed steady. It's proceeds. My attorney cleared his throat. My client is willing to cooperate fully. Morales nodded once like he'd expected that. Then he said the thing that changed the temperature in the room. Mr. Harper, we have reason to believe your wife wasn't just a pass-through. We believe she helped create the vendor structure. I felt my face go numb. My wife barely understands our printer, I said. Too quickly, too defensive. Morales didn't react. We have emails. I turned to my attorney, but he was looking down, jaw tight. Morales leaned back. Here's what I'll tell you. Cooperating can protect you, can protect your children. But you need to stop accepting money from Mr. Ross. And you need to be honest. Radical honesty came back like a punchline. I walked out of the building with my legs shaking, realizing the fix had been a trap. And the person who'd invited it into our house was sleeping in my bed. I confronted Claire that night in the living room, after the kids were asleep. The lamps were off. The TV was muted. The house felt like it was holding its breath. They have emails, I said. Claire's face drained. What emails? The ones where you helped set up the vendor structure, I said. They think you weren't just a consultant. She shook her head hard. No, that's not. Stop, I said, and my voice sounded unfamiliar to me, rougher. Tell me the truth. All of it. Claire sat down like her legs gave out. I helped him register a company, she whispered. Years ago, he asked me to. It was just paperwork. For what? I demanded. She cried silently, tears sliding down like she couldn't spare energy for sound. He said he needed a clean vendor. He said it wasn't illegal. He said everyone does it. I stared at her. And you believed him? She looked up, eyes bright with fear. I wanted to believe him. That was the honest part. Not the fraud. The want. Then came the next twist. The one that made my stomach twist into something like grief. Claire had been using the consulting money to pay our mortgage for months. Quietly, without telling me. Because my business income had gotten too inconsistent. She'd been propping up the life I thought I was providing. You let me think I was holding us up, I said, voice shaking. While you were, what, patching the holes with stolen money? It wasn't stolen, she whispered, then cracked. Okay, maybe it was, but I did it for us. I laughed again, but this time it was pure despair. All my responsible control had been an illusion funded by crime. And the worst part? A small, shameful part of me thought, at least the mortgage got paid. That's what money does. It doesn't just cause conflict. It rewires your morals. The next weeks were a blur of attorneys, disclosures, and quiet terror. We were told not to destroy anything, not to coordinate stories, not to contact Evan. Evan, of course, contacted us anyway. He texted Claire from a new number. You're being dramatic. Stop talking. Then, I can make this go away. Then, to me, your wife will fold. You want your kids to watch her get arrested? I stared at the messages until the screen dimmed. I showed my attorney. He looked exhausted. This helps, he said, which was a weird way to describe a threat. Then the trustee filed an objection. The bankruptcy wasn't just a financial reset anymore. It was a spotlight. We were scheduled for another hearing. Our clean slate was now a document full of mistakes, omissions, and money we should never have touched. The fourth twist came from my father. He called me out of the blue, voice tight. Why didn't you tell me you were in bankruptcy? I swallowed. I didn't want to drag you into it. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, I need you to listen. Your mother left you something. My mom had died 3 years earlier. Cancer. Medical bills that we thought we'd handled responsibly. We'd grieved. We'd closed accounts. Or so I thought. What do you mean? I asked. My dad sighed. She had a small trust. Not huge. But she didn't want it touched unless you were desperate. I sat down hard. How much? 200,000, he said quietly. I'm telling you because bankruptcy courts find things. And because if you're going down, I don't want surprises. My hands started shaking. 200,000 could fix everything. 200,000 could pay attorneys, restitution, keep the house, protect the kids. And I hadn't known it existed. My responsible worldview shifted again. I hadn't been in control. I'd been sheltered. My mother had planned for my failure. And now my failure had activated her money. Went bankrupt, and that's exactly what brought the money. But it wasn't relief. It was a new temptation with a bigger price tag. I didn't tell Claire about the trust right away. That's the part I'm most ashamed of. I told myself I was being strategic, protecting it from being tangled in our mess. But if I'm honest, I wanted something that was mine. Something untouched by Evan. Untouched by Claire. Untouched by our shared stupidity. A lifeboat. The next hearing was brutal. The trustee's attorney asked pointed questions about the deposits, about the wire, about the invoices. My attorney answered carefully. I answered carefully. Claire looked like a ghost in a blazer. Afterward, in the hallway, my attorney pulled me aside. They're going to push for conversion or dismissal. And the federal side, that's separate. What do? I asked, and hated how small my voice sounded. He said, you cooperate, and you prepare for the possibility that you'll need to show good faith with restitution. Restitution. That word makes money sound like a moral substance you can pour back into a hole. That night, Claire found the email from my dad. I'd left my laptop open. Careless. Or maybe I wanted to be caught. She read it and went very still. You have a trust? She whispered. I didn't answer fast enough. Her voice rose. You didn't tell me? I was going to, I said. But it sounded like a lie. Claire's face twisted. Not just hurt, but offended. Like I'd broken a rule she thought only she was allowed to break. We could use that, she said sharply. We need that. We might lose it, I snapped. The court could. We're already losing everything, she shouted, then clapped a hand over her mouth like she'd woken the kids. I stared at her, and something clicked into place with cold clarity. Claire didn't just hide money out of fear. I hid money out of the same thing. Control, possession, panic. We were the same, just different flavors of secret. And that's when I understood the final unraveling wasn't Evan. It was us. Here's where it landed. For anyone who wants an ending with a neat moral. There wasn't one. I disclosed the trust. I had to. My attorney told me there was no version of this where hiding it didn't make things worse. The trustee moved fast. The court moved faster once there was real money on the table. The trust was partially protected by exemptions, partially not. We used a significant chunk for attorneys and for what my lawyer called demonstrating good faith. Restitution payments started. The bankruptcy didn't discharge what it couldn't discharge. The clean slate stayed dirty. On the federal side, I cooperated. Claire cooperated, too. After a breakdown in the parking lot of her office where she sat in her car and admitted she'd been waiting for someone else, anyone else, to take responsibility for her choices. Evan got arrested. When I saw his name in a local headline, I didn't feel victory. I felt tired, like the adrenaline that had kept me upright finally ran out. Claire and I separated quietly. No dramatic screaming, no thrown plates. Just two people realizing trust doesn't survive being traded like currency. The kids asked why Dad was sleeping on the couch. I said, I'm working late, even though my work was mostly phone calls with lawyers and staring at bank balances like they were prophecies. Sometimes, late at night, I still open my old spreadsheets. The neat color blocks, The clean formulas. The illusion of control. I used to think bankruptcy happened to people who made reckless choices. Now I know it happens to people like me, too. People who think being responsible means you don't have to look too closely at uncomfortable numbers. Went bankrupt, and that's exactly what brought the money. But the money didn't save me. It just made it impossible to pretend I was someone different.